Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are going to take a look at the final of the 2020 Safari LTD releases. So yes, today is a very sad day because that means we have no more new Safari LTD figures until next year. But this is their incredible Shringasaurus. Before I go any further with the review, I just want to remind any of you out there, if you don't make it to the end of the video, that you'll absolutely have this information. If you are interested in this figure or any other Safari LTD figures, make sure that when you go to their website and you go to checkout, you use the code ANDY at checkout for a discount of 20%. Thanks to Safari LTD for allowing us that code and giving us a discount for any viewers here of the channel. But back to the figure, you can see overall that it looks extremely nice as far as both the sculpt and paint goes on the figure, and in general having a Shringasaurus is fantastic because I can't remember anybody making one before, and if they have, I have not personally seen it. Maybe like Kyoto or somebody might have had one at some point because they have tons of figures that I'm not too aware of. But honestly, it's a very obscure reptile that you just don't see get figures very often, if ever. So Safari LTD creating one here is definitely the first one to enter my collection, but in general is really quite awesome because I love that they go out of the way to create beautiful obscure species with your more mainstream species to give us a great mix of both. But honestly, the figure looks fantastic here at first glance, so let's go ahead and get a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see some really nice scales all over the head sculpt of our Shringasaurus, as well as a nicely sculpted out nostril. You can see the inside of the mouth is actually giving kind of like a light pink type of a color, almost like a peach type color in there, and it's just ever so slightly present. It's almost hard to actually pick up on unless you're really looking for it, but even with a closed mouth animal, they still find a way to actually give a little bit of paint application to the inside of the mouth, but then at the same time you can see that the mouth is actually outlined with like a darker coloration as well, so it highlights the mouth, but at the same time still includes a little bit of the coloration of the inside of the mouth, so that's incredibly impressive on the part of Safari LTD. You can also see the eye socket is sculpted out quite nicely, as well as the eyes themselves are painted quite beautifully with a nice brown coloration and then a black pupil, and you can see it glossing and shining very realistically here in the light. Both eyes appear to be painted really well. Yep, definitely no sloppiness as far as the eyes go. The head sculpt primarily seems to be mostly like a yellowish type of a color, but you can also see kind of like a light white creeping through in certain areas. So it's really beautifully painted as far as different skin tone, kind of giving it a very realistic appearance as far as the way it's been painted. Up here on the top of the skull of our Shringasaurus, you can see those very peculiar looking spikes that stick up here on the top of the head. One of the most striking attributes of the Shringasaurus, and you can definitely see that they are nicely sculpted as well, including some very nice, very fine detailing within, as well as kind of a brownish type of a color that rings around the bottom of the horn, and then the horns themselves are like a light gray almost type of a color, and they kind of have a little bit of a shine to them, so that also looks really quite nice. Helps to kind of make those horns jump out at you if they don't already do that enough just by being so peculiar looking. But as we start to lead down the neck, you can see some really nice scaling the whole way down. You can also see the ear sculpted out back here, and you get some really beautiful brown stripes and spots that kind of litter the animal and then run down from the spinal column of the animal as well. And I love the way the brown plays off of the yellowish body color. It's extremely appealing looking if you ask me. You got some nice skin folding going on down here, some really beautiful detail in the throat as well. And then once we get down here into the body, you can pick up on the shoulder blade a little bit right here. It's not super visible, but it's definitely visible enough, which is good because you don't want your figure to be too shrink wrapped or anything. Once we get down here into the leg sculpt, you can see that the leg sculpt looks really good as well. Beautiful scaling as we run down the entire length of the leg sculpt. We get down here to that foot. It transitions to that dark brown, similar to the brown that we see kind of striping down from the upper part of the body. And then you have some beautifully painted nails, some really nice black nails, and they are hit with a wonderful gloss coat to help them shine very realistically. Honestly, looking at it here, it almost looks like a real lizard's foot. So that is very impressive how good of a job Safari LTD has done on both the sculpt and paint application, especially right here in the foot area. Moving back up into the body, you can see a few skin folds here in the stomach region, kind of reacting to both legs pushing into the stomach, bunching the skin up quite nicely right there. You can also see some more really nice scale work as we run back up here to the top of the animal. You can now take note to the spinal column, and then moving down into the rear leg, you have some very nice brown paint that starts up here at the hip area, whereas this leg primarily stayed mostly a yellowish coloration. Over here it kind of starts a little earlier, and then you get most of the leg as this brownish coloration. As you move down, you can see some really nice creasing in the knee area of our Shringasaurus, and then you can see that it transitions to almost like a little bit of a lighter brown down here in the foot. Once again, the nails look great as far as the paint application and the wonderful gloss coat used to give them a very realistic shine like it would have in real life. And then we come back up here into the tail, and we run out the length of the tail. The tail, of course, is dragging on the ground like it should be, and then it looks really beautiful as far as the paint application and the sculpt work goes. Once again, we've got those really nice brown stripes, and at the same time that this is yellow, it almost has like a hint of orange throughout as well, so it's very impressively painted, very realistically painted. Looking at the opposing side, you can see that the neck sculpt looks really good, really nicely stretched out, really stretching the skin, and that is really quite nicely portrayed in the sculpt. You have the beautiful scales as we lead down the neck once again, down here into the body. You can really quite nicely take note of the shoulder blade over on this side. Very beautiful, because now the leg is stretched out so far, so it's kind of tensing up the shoulder blade and just kind of pushing the shoulder blade out throughout the skin. That is very nice attention to detail on the part of Safari LTD, quite impressive for sure. As we move down the leg, again you can see some wonderful scaling as we move down into the foot, and then you've got those beautifully painted nails and the really nice foot sculpt over here. It looks great from every vantage point as far as that foot sculpt goes. You can see the skin stretching off of the body again, kind of playing off of the way that the legs are positioned, with the legs stretching the skin now, as opposed to bunching the skin up like we had seen on the previous side. Really beautiful scaling all over the animal once again, as well as a very nice paint job in every area that I see. Then moving back here into the rear leg, once again, very nice detailing in general, where the leg connects to the body, but then moving down, you've got that beautiful crease in the knee once again, very nice brown for the rear leg, and then you've got the beautifully painted nails, really beautiful foot sculpt. Overall, fantastic looking as far as the sculpt goes. And then we come back here to the tail once again, really nice and long, kind of has a little bit of a curve to it going out here to the tip of the tail, and beautiful paint apps. Once again, looking at the underside, very beautiful detailing the whole way through. As we run out the entire length of our Shringasaurus, it looks fantastic. Shockingly, I don't notice an extremely visible cloaca here, but maybe that little area seems to be sculpted out. Maybe that's implying that that would be the cloaca area. I just feel like Safari LTD usually elaborates that area a little bit more to really make you take note of it, but honestly, I think the Shringasaurus is great, really beautiful, and it was definitely one of the most anticipated figures as far as I'm concerned for the 2020 year from Safari LTD. It's unfortunate it took me this long to get a hold of it, as we are a few months into 2020 and this figure's been out for a little while, but now that I actually have it here in hand and in my collection, I could not be happier with it. As far as the size goes on our Shringasaurus, from the tail to the tip of the snout, you are going to see the Shringasaurus come in at about just a little over probably 6.5 inches, or around 16.5 centimeters, somewhere in that range. And for a height, about 2.5 inches, or around 6.5 centimeters, somewhere in that range for a size comparison. Just like with my recent Ichthyosaurus review, I'm using 3 different, what I term kind of more popular Safari LTD figures, some of the figures that you see in more of an abundance than others. So hopefully some of you guys will have some of these figures, or at least one of these figures, to comparison with our Shringasaurus. You can definitely see that it's not a very large figure, but it's also not really that small, so it's pretty close. I'd say probably approaching a medium-sized figure, but not really quite there. So it is a little on the smaller side, but honestly it is absolutely beautiful and jam-packed with incredible detail, which is even more so impressive due to its size. So I can say that without question, this year from the Safari LTD line, there was not a single figure that was even remotely bad, and there was also not a single figure that once I actually got it in hand, I wasn't just absolutely in love with it. they continue to impress me every single year with just how many releases they can pop out, but just how beautiful the releases end up being. And this year, the 2020 year, is just another surefire example of that, with just tons of incredible figures. And we are topping all of that off with this beautiful Shringasaurus. This figure is just really nice in person. You can see a beautiful sculpt, really fine detailing. The scaling on the figure in person looks incredible. It really does. Even from a distance, the scaling is so well done that you can pick up on it. So beautifully applied to the figure, and just in general looks extremely realistic. Even from a foot or two away, it's just very impressive when it comes to the overall sculpting of the scales. The body sculpt in general is really beautifully done, very nicely portraying movement throughout the body, and also really beautifully kind of showing the bone structure in certain areas. Like you can very nicely see the skull shape of the animal within the head sculpt, as well as that area on the opposing side showing the shoulder blade kind of protruding from the skin a little bit due to the positioning of the leg. It's really impressive, things like that. It's those little details that really impress me when it comes to a sculpt or a company, and just how much love and work they put into their figures, and you can always see that shine through in a Safari LTD figure, and that right there is a prime example of that. I also really like the paint scheme. I think the paint scheme is definitely beautifully done, and something I could absolutely see being on this animal. And the paint application is applied very naturally in every area. It's very beautifully and very realistically applied to the figure, and overall makes the figure even more impressive. And then you have the wonderful paint on the nails. The nails are glossed and painted so beautifully, it generally looks like real nails on the figure. So every single aspect of this Shringasaurus, as far as I'm concerned, is just gorgeous. So if you would like to pick this up, I will include a link in the description for you to go ahead to the Safari LTD website. I will have the link straight to this exact listing for our wonderful Shringasaurus that you see before you. And also remember to use the code ANDY to get yourself 20% off of this Shringasaurus or whatever figure you are interested in ordering from the Safari LTD website. So make sure you check the description, go order this fantastic Shringasaurus. Make sure you use that code ANDY to get 20% off as well, and then make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.